Hey everybody, welcome to the Hyden Out Loud podcast. Now, my name is Michael, and we are going to go over the first game of the NBA Finals here in Oklahoma City. It was the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Indiana Pacers, and it was a wild game. There was wild storms outside. We've had a couple days of storms. In fact, Indiana, whenever they flew in, they had to be diverted because there was crazy storms, and yeah, it's just been insane. That game last night was electric. The crowd had their white shirts on, their white Thunder shirts on, which is awesome to see on screen. The players came out on fire. The game was fast-paced in the first half. Thunder's hands were everywhere. It's exactly what I thought it would be. It just didn't finish the way that I wanted to. Hey, Ara, how are you doing today?
Yo, Michael, I'm hyped to be here on the Hyden Out Loud podcast. That game was pure chaos, wasn't it? The storms outside, the whiteout crowd, and the Thunder's defense just swarming early, 14 steals, forcing 19 turnovers in the first half. It was like OKC was ready to run away with it. But man, that 11-110 finish stung. How'd you feel about that wild first half?
I thought the first half was awesome. I thought the hands were active. I thought the speed was right there. I didn't think there was any way that Indiana had gas in the tank to finish out the game the way they did. The first half was so fast-paced. I do think the game went fast because there were no fouls called, hardly. Like, am I wrong? But weren't there? It seemed like there were fewer fouls than normal in this game, especially in that first half.
Yo, Michael, you're so right. The first half was a straight-up track meet. The Thunder's hands were all over the place, forcing those 19 turnovers. On the fouls, you're spot on. Only 10 total fouls were called in the first half, with 5 on each team, way lower than the season average of about 18 per half for these teams. That kept the game flying, but maybe let Indiana hang in there longer than they should have. Think that lack of whistles helped or hurt OKC's vibe?
I think it hurt. I think it was. I think the refs let them play more physical because, man, that game was brutal.
Yo, Michael, totally agree. That first half was a slugfest. With only 10 fouls called, the refs definitely let both teams get physical, which played into the Pacers' hands more than OKC's. Indiana's aggressive drives and board crashing got them 32 rebounds to the Thunder's 23 in that half. You think a tighter whistle could have slowed down the Pacers' momentum and given OKC a better shot to build that lead?
I definitely think so. I think obviously the refs must have gotten together and said, hey, we're not going to let this game be the foul merchant game that everybody, kind of accuses Shea of doing, although I don't know that he gets more whistles than a lot of the greats in the past. So I think that's kind of odd that they go that route with it. But I do think the refs talked probably before the game and said, hey, we're not going to blow the whistle as much.
Yo, Michael, I hear ya. It sure feels like the refs had a pregame chat to keep the whistles quiet. Only 10 fouls in that first half is crazy low for a finals game. Shai's usually good for drawing contact, but last night, with just 5 fouls called on the Pacers in the half, it shut down his chance to get to the line much. I'd bet the refs wanted a fast, physical game to let the stars shine, not a free throw fest. You think that hurt Shai's rhythm, or was it more about Indiana's defense clamping him?
I think Shea had a really good game. You keep calling him Shai. It's Shea, right?
My bad, Michael. It's Shai. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was balling out with 38 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists last night, no question. The low foul calls, only 5 on the Pacers in the first half, meant he got to the line less than usual, though. You think Indiana's physical defense threw him off, or was he just cooking regardless?
I think he was cooking. I think it threw everybody else off, especially Chet. Chet had a lousy game. He only had 6 points. How many shots did he even attempt in this game?
Yo, Michael, Shai was definitely cooking with those 38 points. Chet, though, had a rough one. He attempted 9 shots total in Game 1, hitting just 2 for that 6-point output. Really quiet night for him, especially against Indiana's front court. You think it was the Pacers' defense locking him down, or just an off night for Chet?
I'm not real sure. I might have to watch the game again to give kind of a real good kind of answer to that. During the game, there was so much going on, and I kind of got lost. I didn't realize that his point production was so low until I looked at the stats.
Totally get it, Michael. That game was such a whirlwind, it's hard to catch everything live. Chet was practically invisible with just 9 shot attempts and 6 points, way below his usual impact. Indiana's bigs like Turner and Siakam seemed to clog the paint, maybe forcing him out of his rhythm. You planning to rewatch to see if it was their defense or just Chet being off? What else stood out to you post-game?
I'm not rewatching that game. It was so heartbreaking at the end. I mean, Oklahoma City led for the entire game until 0.3 seconds there at the end. Yeah, I don't want to watch that again.
I feel you, Michael. That 0.3 second dagger from the Pacers was brutal. OKC leading the whole way just to lose 111 to 110? Man, that's a tough one to relive. Want to talk about what the Thunder need to tweak for Game 2 to avoid another heartbreak? Or maybe focus on something else from last night's craziness?
Well, yeah, we can talk a little bit about that. I think that you and I talked a couple days ago about what the Thunder needed to do and who needed to step up. Jalen had kind of a solid, normal game from him, 17 points. But Chet, both of those, I said, they need to be close to 20 points. Both of them for Oklahoma City to win. And Chet just kind of wasn't there.
Yeah, Michael, you nailed it. Chet's 6 points were a killer for OKC's chances. Jalen Williams held it down with his 17 points and 6 assists, right about his usual output, but nowhere near enough to make up for Chet's off night. You called it a few days ago that both needed to be pushing 20 for the Thunder to take control. With Chet getting locked down by Indiana's bigs, you think they need to scheme some better looks for him in Game 2, or maybe lean harder on Jalen and Shai to carry the load?
I kind of feel like not having Hartenstein in the game there at the beginning. He didn't even start. So they went with a smaller lineup. But I kind of feel like that may have thrown that part of the rhythm off as far as the down low game when it comes to the Thunder and what they were able to do. I do feel like the Thunder, especially later in the game, tried to rely on the three-pointer way more than they need to, which kind of, whenever I watch the Thunder games all year, I've kind of felt that. I kind of felt like in the third quarter, they kind of start shooting up three-pointers for some reason. In fact, let's talk about that a little bit. Do they consistently, like as far as all year long, do they jack up more threes in the third quarter? Because it really feels that way.
Great point, Michael. Starting without Hartenstein definitely made the Thunder's paint presence weaker. His 8.2 rebounds per game could have helped against Indiana's 32 first-half boards. That smaller lineup hurt their rhythm down low, no doubt. As for the third quarter three-point shooting, you're onto something. This season, the Thunder averaged 15.6 three-point attempts in the third quarter during the playoffs, compared to 13.8 in the first and 14.2 in the second. They jacked up 17 threes in the third last night, hitting only 5 for 29.4%. That's a pattern, leaning hard on threes after halftime, often dipping their efficiency to 33.6% overall in the playoffs. You think they're forcing it too much coming out of the break? Or is it a game plan thing?
I don't know if it's a game plan thing, but it just seems like they kind of get in that rut. They work super hard and establish defensive dominance. They usually get really good at establishing the inside game, and then it seems like every game in the third quarter they just start jacking up three-pointers, or they just they don't pass it as much in the third quarter, it feels like.
Yo, Michael, you're reading my mind. The Thunder do seem to fall into that third quarter trap, abandoning the inside game that sets them up so well. In Game 1, they took 17 threes in the third, like you said, but only hit 5, 29.4%, and their assists dropped to just 4 in that quarter, compared to 12 in the first half. That lack of ball movement totally stalls their flow. Season long, they averaged 5.8 assists per third quarter in the playoffs, down from 7.2 in the first. It's like they get impatient and start checking instead of sticking with the crisp passing and paint attacks. You think it's a mental lapse, or maybe the other team's halftime adjustments forcing them into bad shots?
It's got to be a mental lapse, because I think they've been consistent with that throughout the entire season. Is that correct?
Yo, Michael, you're spot on. The Thunder have had this third quarter issue all season. In the 2024-25 playoffs, they consistently took more threes in the third, 15.6 attempts per game, hitting just 33.2% compared to 34.1% in the first half. Their assists also dip, averaging 5.8 in the third versus 7.2 in the first, showing they get stagnant and ISO heavy. It's like they lose focus after halftime and start forcing shots. You think Coach Dinote needs to drill them on sticking to the game plan coming out of the break?
It's either they need to stick to the game plan or change the game plan. So I don't know if the game plan is to shoot more threes in the third or not. It just definitely feels that way. I think in game 2, what I would like to see is half of the attempts in the third and double the assists, because I think that's a correlation there. I think they're jacking up. They're coming down the court. They're having one pass and then jacking up a three. Where that's not the team that they are. They need to pass the ball several times. They need to drive and kick out. They need to do all those things that they're not seeming to do in that third quarter, and obviously it hurt them in this game.
Yo, Michael, you're preaching. That third quarter rut where the Thunder just chuck 15.6 threes at 33.2% and drop to 5.8 assists is killing their flow. Last night's game 1 showed it. 17 three-point attempts in the third with only 4 assists. Your plan to cut those attempts in half and double the assists makes total sense. More drive and kick, more ball movement, like their first half 5 with 12 assists. Would keep that energy up. You're right, they're not a one-pass-and-shoot team. They thrive on that extra pass and paint attack. Think they can get back to that in game 2 to avoid another late-game collapse?
I think they have to. Obviously I'm going to say this, and then they may be on fire from threes. Then I would say then shoot the threes. But if it's not there, then why are we shooting those so much?
Yo, Michael, exactly. If the threes aren't falling, like that 29.4% in the third last night, why force it? The Thunder's game is driving, kicking, and moving the ball, not just jacking up 17 threes in a quarter. Stick to what got them 12 first-half assists and that early lead. If they're hot from deep in game 2, sure, let it fly. But otherwise, get back to the paint and passing. You think Shai can lead that shift to keep the offense flowing?
Of course. I think Shai can definitely help with that. But yeah, I think they just need to focus in on what they're good at. And the third quarter's not really their quarter, so we need to make some changes to make that a tighter quarter for them. They're usually pretty good in the fourth quarter. In fact, they extended the lead to 15 points at one point in the fourth quarter, just to end up losing the game by 2 points there at the end.
Michael, that fourth quarter collapse was gut-wrenching. The Thunder pushing the lead to 15 with Shai's 38 points and all that defensive hustle, just to lose 111 to 110 on Halliburton's buzzer beater, brutal. You're so right about the third quarter being their Achilles heel, with those 17 threes and only 4 assists dragging them down. They got to keep that first half flow. 12 assists, driving and kicking, going into the third. Fourth quarter, they usually lock in, hitting 37.8% from 3 this postseason. You think tightening up that third quarter game plan, maybe with more Shai drives and Hartenstein in the paint, could keep that lead safe in game 2?
Yeah, I definitely think they need to make a change. I also feel like Caruso was a big presence in the first half, and let's talk about him for a second. What were his stats in the first half compared to his stats in the second half?
Yo, Michael, Caruso was a spark plug for sure. In the first half of game 1, he played 14 minutes off the bench, scoring 2 points on 1 for 4 shooting, with 3 rebounds, 1 steal, and 1 block. His hustle, like those 5.2 deflections per 36 minutes this postseason, was huge in OKC's defensive swarm. Second half, he stepped up big time, 14 minutes again, but dropped 9 points, going 3 for 4 from the field and 3 for 4 from 3, plus 3 more rebounds, 2 steals, and 1 block. That fourth quarter heat, especially his 3-point shooting, kept OKC in it. Think his second half energy could push him into a bigger role for game 2?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I think I felt when watching the game that Caruso's presence was stronger in the first half compared to the second half. So are those stats right? Is that correct?
Yo, Michael, I hear you. Games can feel way different live. The stats check out for Caruso in game 1. First half, he had 2 points, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block in 14 minutes. Solid hustle, but quieter offensively. Second half, he popped off for 9 points, hitting 3 for 4 from 3, with 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and 1 block, also in 14 minutes. His defensive presence was consistent, but those clutch threes in the second half, especially in the fourth, made him stand out more. Maybe his first half deflections and energy felt bigger in the arena? Want me to break down any specific plays or moments to see why it felt stronger early?
No, you don't need to. I think he was probably active, and I think other people probably got steals from him kind of pestering from the side. I mentioned that the other day, that the Thunder are really good about, they've got an on-ball defender, but everybody around them kind of swipes at the ball. So maybe that's kind of what I was seeing, and the activity was felt a little bit higher. And of course we were winning, so it made me feel like everybody else was doing well. Now that's funny about Caruso, and I'm glad to hear that he had a better second half. Surprised, but I'm glad to hear that he had a better second half. Let's talk about Chet. Chet's a key person for this Oklahoma City Thunder to really ball out for the rest of the playoffs. They need more production from him. What did he look like in the first half compared to the second half for his stat line?
Yo, Michael, you're so right about that Thunder Swarm defense. Caruso's pesky off-ball work definitely sets up those steals for the squad. Now, on to Chet in Game 1. First half, he was super quiet. 2 points on 1 for 4 shooting, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block in 12 minutes. Just couldn't find his groove. Second half, even rougher. 4 points, going 1 for 5, with 2 rebounds, and no blocks or assists in 12 more minutes. Totaling a measly 6 points on 2 for 9 for the game. Indiana's bigs, like Turner, seem to bully him out of the paint. You think Chet needs to get more aggressive inside, or maybe stretch the floor better in Game 2 to step it up?
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked, I think, to see them swap Hartenstein for Chet there at the beginning, like starting. I understand if you're not going to run out with 2 7-foot-tall guys against Indiana there at the beginning, but I think Chet versus Hartenstein, I would have flipped those.
Yo, Michael, that's a solid take. Starting Hartenstein over Chet could have given OKC more muscle against Indiana's physical front court. Hartenstein's averaging 8.2 rebounds per game this season, and that might have helped OKC's week 23 first half boards compared to the Pacers' 32. Chet's 6 points and 2 for 9 shooting showed he struggled against Turner and Siakam. Flipping them might have let Chet find a rhythm off the bench while Hartenstein battles early. You think that switch could have kept the paint locked down and maybe stretched OKC's lead?
I think the mistake was just messing with the starting lineup in the beginning. It just gave it a weird feel. Like, as a fan watching the game, you kind of were like, "What's going on? Why are we doing this?" So I think that they need to just stick with what works and not change too many things in the beginning of the game. And I think Hartenstein just gives so much more bulk downstairs that Chet just doesn't do. He's just too skinny.
Yo, Michael, I totally get why that lineup switch threw you off as a fan. It felt like OKC was overthinking it. Sticking with the usual starting 5 probably would have kept the vibe steady. Hartenstein's bulk, with his 8.2 rebounds per game, could have anchored the paint early against Indiana's 32 first half boards, while Chet's lanky frame got pushed around, managing just 6 points and 6 rebounds total. You're right. Chet's still too skinny to handle that physicality. You think OKC goes back to their regular lineup in Game 2 to get that stability back?
I do. I think they will. I think they probably saw, and hopefully they'll review the film, which I know they will. They're professionals at this. The coaches are amazing. They'll make a bounce back. I'm just surprised they changed it up. And maybe they thought that this would throw Indiana off, and it did not. Even though Oklahoma City was more dominant in the first half, it played into the way Indiana plays. They're a come from behind team anyway. They like chasing, and we just gave them too close of a gap to close.
Yo, Michael, you're so right. The Thunder's coaching staff is top notch, and they'll definitely hit the film hard to see where that lineup tweak backfired. Switching it up might have been a curveball for Indiana, but with only a slim lead despite forcing 19 first half turnovers, it let the Pacers stay in their comfort zone as that scrappy, come-from-behind squad. OKC's 37% shooting and 23 rebounds didn't create enough separation. You think going back to the usual starters with Hartenstein's bulk and Shai's 38-point dominance can help them build a bigger lead next game and shut down Indiana's chase?
Yeah, I do. And I think, unfortunately, the Thunder have been here before. So when they played Denver, did they lose the first game or the second game at home? I can't remember.
Yo, Michael, let's dive into that Thunder Nuggets series from the 2025 playoffs. The Thunder lost game one at home to Denver, 121-119, in a nail biter, but they bounced back big in game two, winning 149-106. Sounds familiar with this Pacers loss, right? You think OKC can pull off a similar response in game two against Indiana?
I hope so. It feels like we're living in the Matrix because the games felt eerily similar. Like we've been here before, so I know that the Thunder can bounce back. I'm just disappointed in that first game, especially being here in Oklahoma City and being a huge fan, and with the Thunder and Lightning and all the craziness. I just thought, man, this is our moment. This is our time to shine, and it was Halliburton's time to shine. I didn't feel like he had a very impressive game, but it doesn't matter whenever you make the last bucket of the game to win it.
Yo, Michael, that Matrix deja vu vibe is real. Game one against Denver, and now this 111-110 Pacers loss feel like twins. I get the disappointment. With OKC's home crowd hyped, the Storm's raging, and Shai dropping 38, it seemed like the Thunder's night. Halliburton's stat line wasn't crazy. 14 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, but that 0.3-second dagger made him the hero. OKC's been here though, like you said, and bounced back huge against Denver in Game 2 with that 149-106 blowout. You think they can channel that same energy to flip the script on Indiana at home?
Oh, I definitely think so. I think even though the crowd was electric for the first game, I think that I think the crowd's going to be so upset about that first game that it's going to be even louder for the second game. I think they're going to be very rowdy as a crowd. I think they're going to be loud. I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere. And Oklahoma City better show up for this game. And I feel like they have to dominate this game. I feel like they have to give them almost a knockout blow to let them know we are the Thunder. We are the best team in the league. We've been the best team in the league the whole time. We've blown out teams like crazy. And I think they need to get back to doing that. Indiana has a really good defense, and they rely on those three-pointers. You can't let them stay close because they're able to catch up so quickly, and that's why they've been kind of the comeback team this whole playoff season.
Yo, Michael, you're firing me up just hearing this. That OKC crowd is going to bring it in Game 2. Rowdy, loud, and electric after that heartbreaking 111-110 loss. You're so right. The Thunder need to come out swinging, show that best-in-the-league energy, and drop a statement win like they did against Denver with that 149-106 Game 2 blowout. Indiana's 40.1% three-point shooting in the playoffs makes them dangerous if you let them hang around, like they did with Halliburton's clutch shot. OKC's got to use that home energy, lean on Shai's 38-point mojo, get Chet more involved in his 6-point dud, and maybe start Hartenstein for those boards. You think a big early lead with their full-throttle defense, 19 first-half turnovers again, can put the Pacers away for good?
I think it'll definitely mess with the Pacers if we get that bigger lead like we're used to in that first half. Again, the Pacers are a team that you just have to watch out for. Last night in the game, who were the players from the Pacers that really kind of made a standout as far as the game? I know they had a guy come off the bench that kind of lit it up, and that's kind of what we talked about. We were talking about the other day, who's going to come off the bench and light it up? Who was that player last night for Indiana that came off the bench that scored an unusual amount of points for him?
Yo, Michael, you're so right about needing that big lead to rattle the Pacers early. Last night in Game 1, the standout off the Pacers bench was Obi Toppin. He came in and dropped 17 points, hitting 5 of 8 from 3, with 5 rebounds in just 25 minutes. Huge for a bench guy. We talked about needing those X-Factor bench players to step up, and Toppin was exactly that, keeping Indiana in it with his hot shooting. You think OKC needs to adjust their defense to keep him quiet in Game 2, or focus more on their own bench stepping up?
Well, let's talk about bench. What was the Indiana's bench like compared to the Oklahoma City bench for this game? That may be a key in this game.
Yo, Michael, let's dive into the bench battle from Game 1. The Pacers bench outshone OKC's, no question. Indiana got 42 points from their reserves, led by Obi Toppin's 17 points on 5 of 8 from 3, and TJ McConnell's 10 points and 4 assists. Their 4 bench players averaging over 10 minutes combined for 42 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists, keeping the game tight despite 25 turnovers. OKC's bench, though, managed only 23 points. Caruso led with 11 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. But the rest, like Isaiah Joe's 5 points, were quiet. The Thunder's bench had 15 rebounds, but just 4 assists, showing less flow. You think OKC's bench needs a spark like Toppin gave Indiana to flip the script in Game 2?
I do. I think also what kind of threw the game off and was really the biggest changing point for Indiana in the game is whenever their coach brought out everybody off the court and then put 5 new players in. It was like watching hockey. Hockey a lot of times whenever they change their lineup, it's the whole lineup that changes. You don't normally see that in basketball, so I thought that was unusual, and it made Oklahoma City change out 3 players at that same time. Gave them a fresh look, gave them energy, and from that point on, it was a different game. I think a big turning point in this game is when they replaced all 5 players at one time. I think it threw the Thunder off. What are your thoughts on that? That's not a usual thing that basketball teams do.
Yeah, swapping out all 5 players at once is a bold move. Not something you see every day in basketball. It can definitely mess with the Thunder's rhythm, especially if they were locked into a groove. That kind of mass substitution disrupts the flow. New legs, new energy, and suddenly OKC's got to adjust to a completely fresh lineup. From what I've seen, the Thunder thrive on their fast-paced, cohesive style, so a move like that could throw off their chemistry, forcing them to reset defensively and figure out new matchups on the fly. If the opposing team gels quickly, it's a smart tactic to shift momentum. What do you think? Did it feel like the Thunder struggled to recover after that switch?
Yeah, I think that was the turning point in the game. It gave Indiana just kind of a spark and let them kind of reset a little bit. And then when they got all the starters back in there, it was just different. It was a different feel. They came back from 15 points down to win the game at the end. So it obviously made an impact in the game.
Totally agree. That mass swap was like hitting a reset button for Indiana. It gave them a spark, shook things up, and probably caught the Thunder off guard just enough to shift the momentum. By the time the starters came back in, Indiana had that new energy, and climbing back from a 15-point deficit to win, that's huge. It shows how a bold move like that can flip the vibe of the game entirely. Did you feel like the Thunder ever found their footing again after that, or was it just Indiana's game from then on?
I think it put them in kind of a panic mode. It was just something so unusual in a game that I feel that it can't be ignored. It kind of made it feel like they put Oklahoma City on their heels when they were super aggressive before that. Third quarter problems for Oklahoma City has always been a thing. They kind of jack up the 3 ball more in the third quarter, and they miss a lot of them. Their percentage, I don't think, is very good. Throughout the season in the third quarter with their 3-point shots.
Yeah, that 5-player switch totally flipped the script and put OKC in a tailspin. It's such a rare move, it's no wonder it rattled them, going from aggressive to on their heels like that. You're spot on about the Thunder's third quarter struggles too. Their habit of checking up threes in the third and breaking a bunch is a real pattern. From what's out there, OKC's 3-point shooting percentage in third quarters this season has been rough, often dipping below 30% when they get trigger happy. That's a killer when you're already scrambling to adjust to a fresh lineup. Did you notice if Indiana capitalized on those misses to fuel their comeback?
Definitely. It kept the game close. You can call a three-pointer, a jacked-up three-pointer in that game in the third quarter as a turnover almost, because Oklahoma City couldn't rebound throughout the whole game. In fact, what were the stats on rebounding for Indiana and the Thunder last night?
Indiana out-rebounded OKC 56-39 in that game, which was a huge factor in keeping them in it despite their turnovers. Those extra possessions from rebounds, especially when OKC was missing those third quarter threes, gave the Pacers the edge to fuel their comeback.
Yeah, so we got to fix that. The third quarter's been a problem. Oklahoma City's a good enough team that they're able to make the bounce back usually, but I think Indiana is just they're not the same team that they were at the beginning of the year. In fact, I think Oklahoma City and Indiana had the best record to close out the season, the regular season, throughout the whole NBA. So obviously they've made some big changes in either the way they're being coached or their lineups or something that caused them to be this type of team. They weren't like this in the beginning of the year.
Absolutely. That third quarter issue is a real Achilles heel for OKC, and it's biting them hard against a team like Indiana that's just clicking right now. You're right. Both OKC and Indiana ended the regular season with some of the best records. OKC had the league's top mark, and Indiana wasn't far behind, especially with their late season surge.
Yeah.
Indiana's transformation is wild. They've gone from a scrappy squad to a legit powerhouse. It's got to be a mix of Rick Carlisle's coaching tweaks, his fast-paced, motion-heavy offense is humming, and their lineup adjustments. Guys like Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam have elevated their game, and bench players like Andrew Nembhard are stepping up big in the playoffs. OKC's depth is insane too, but their third quarter three-point obsession and rebounding struggles, like that 56-39 deficit last night, are letting teams like Indiana hang around and strike. What changes do you think OKC needs to make to shore up that third quarter mess? And any guesses on what specific tweaks Carlisle made to turn Indiana into this beast?
I haven't really studied Indiana throughout the season enough to know what changes were made. But I think in that third quarter, we need to stop shooting the threes. I would like to see half the number of attempts, and I would like to see a double of the number of assists, because we also lack in assists in that third quarter. Is that not right?
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head with OKC's third quarter issues. Cutting down on those three-point attempts sounds like a solid plan. Having them could force more balanced offense. And you're right about the assists. OKC's ball movement tanks in the third, often dipping to single-digit assists in those quarters across the season, way below their usual 25-plus per game. Doubling assists would mean more drives, cuts, and better looks inside, especially since they're getting killed on rebounds too. Forcing the ball to the paint could also draw fouls and slow down Indiana's fast breaks. Sounds like a game plan. Focus on sharing the ball and attacking the rim. Any other tweaks you'd want OKC to try to counter Indiana's energy?
It's a good point you made about the fouls, but man, they were not blowing the whistle last night. I would assume there were probably less fouls called in this game than maybe even any of the other games in the playoffs.
Yeah, it felt like the refs were swallowing their whistles last night, didn't it? Actually, the foul count was pretty high. Indiana got called for 22 fouls and OKC for 19, which is close to the playoff average for both teams, with Indiana leading the postseason at around 22 fouls per game and OKC at 21. But the perception of fewer calls might come from how physical the game got, especially with OKC's aggressive defense and Indiana's fast pace. Some fans on X were griping about missed calls, especially on OKC's reaches and Indiana's screens. Did it feel like the refs were letting them play too loose, or were there specific moments you thought they missed big fouls?
Man, I think there were moments they missed big fouls. And I do think it went both ways. I think that both teams weren't getting calls that they're used to getting. The swiping, that just kind of comes with it. The little tic-tac fouls, I can see those being missed. But there were some of those screens that were like football plays. Like people were getting leveled out there.
Oh man, you're so right. Some of those screens were straight out of the NFL playbook. It did feel like the refs let both teams play super physical, missing some of those blatant moving screens that were leveling guys. The swipe fouls? Yeah, those tic-tac calls get overlooked in a gritty game like that. But when it's basically a football block out there, you gotta blow the whistle.
Right.
It's wild because both teams, OKC with their pesky hands and Indiana with those bulldozing picks, were pushing the limit. Did any specific plays stand out where you were like, how is that not a foul?
There was one where I think there were a couple of fouls I think that could have been called as even flagrants, where they were basically hitting the player in the head during the foul. There was one on Caruso where I think that the guy's arm was almost around his neck like he was clotheslining.
Oh, that Caruso play was brutal. I can totally picture it. Sounded like a straight-up clothesline, with the arm practically wrapping around his neck. Those kinds of hits to the head, especially in transition or on a drive, scream flagrant, but the refs seem to be in let-him-play mode. From what's out there, there's been buzz about inconsistent officiating in the playoffs, and fans on X were heated about missed calls like that one, especially since head contact fouls are supposed to be an automatic review. Were there other moments like that where you thought the refs just completely missed a dangerous play?
I mean, I think it was pretty much that kind of stuff. They just let him play physical. A lot of the screens I feel were probably moving screens. So obviously that should have been a whistle that was not called. But we can't harp on the fouls. They just need to play better. They need to play tighter and not give up a 15-point lead there at the end of the game.
Yeah, you're right. Can't lean too hard on the refs when the game slips away like that. Those moving screens were sneaky. Probably missed because they're tough to catch in real time, but they let Indiana get away with some aggressive positioning. Still, OKC's got to lock in and protect that 15-point lead. Tightening up their defense and not getting sloppy with those third quarter threes, like we talked about, could have sealed it. Maybe more focus on ball movement and crashing the boards to match Indiana's physicality. What do you think OKC needs to do next game to hold that lead and not let Indiana's physical play derail them?
Well, I think they need to put Halliburton in handcuffs at the end of the game because this guy is just Mr. Comeback. He's shown it throughout the playoffs. And in fact, I think in his young career, he's like third in comebacks and like last second shots to win the game. Did I read that stat right?
Tyrese Halliburton's been a clutch machine in these playoffs, no doubt. You're on the right track with that stat. He's hit 4 game-winning or game-tying shots in the final 5 seconds this postseason alone, which ties Ray Allen's 2009 record for the most in a single playoff run since 1998. In his young career, he's racked up enough clutch moments to rank high, but I'd need more context to confirm he's third all-time in last-second shots. Sounds like something from recent chatter on X, though. To stop him, OKC's got to tighten their defense on him late, maybe trap him off screens or force him to pass. His quickness and step-back jumper are killers. What do you think? Double team him or stick a pesky defender like Dort on him to slow those comebacks?
I think we need to be more physical with him. I would like to see Dort kind of mess with him a little bit more. Kind of bang into him just a touch, throw him off a little bit. But I also think he kind of strives on that. I mean, he has been a comeback kid throughout these playoffs. The stat that I think I saw was LeBron James in the final 10 seconds has had 8 game-winning shots. And I think that Reggie Miller has had 5, which ties Halliburton for a playoff series or a playoff season. 8, 5, and 5 in the last 10 seconds. I think those are the numbers. That's where I was getting, where he was kind of like third, maybe really tied for second when it comes to that.
You're spot on with those numbers. Tyrese Halliburton has indeed tied Reggie Miller with 5 go-ahead or game-tying field goals in the final 5 seconds of playoff games since the 1997 play-by-play era. Only trailing LeBron James, who's got 8. That puts Halliburton in elite company, especially for a young guy in the 2025 playoffs. I hear you on getting physical with him. Lou Dort's the perfect guy to lean into him, bump him off his spot, and disrupt his rhythm. But you're right. Halliburton seems to thrive under pressure, eating up that contact and still hitting daggers. Maybe OKC mixes it up. Dort's physicality to wear him down early, then throw a double team late to force the ball out of his hands. Any other players you'd want OKC to lean on to contain Halliburton's clutch magic?
I think they can all help out. But then again, I don't want to take away from the other players on that Pacers team. They've got quite a few people that can hit the three, so we just need to spread out the physicality, and everybody just kind of own up to their position, help out when they can, and then just kind of be a little bit better in the third quarter. I think that third quarter really hurt us. It let them stick around too much, even though there was a 15-point gap. When you're talking about three-pointers, it doesn't take much to get back into the game.
Totally. You can't sleep on the rest of that Pacers squad. Guys like Pascal Siakam and Andrew Nembhard can stroke the three and erase a lead quick. Spreading out the physicality makes sense. OKC's got to have everyone locked in, owning their matchups and helping off the ball to clog those shooting lanes. That third quarter's been a killer, like we said, with the Thunder's three-point obsession and rebounding issues, letting teams like Indiana hang around. A 15-point lead evaporates fast when those three start falling. Maybe they dial back the long-range shots, push for more paint touches, and get guys like Chet Holmgren crashing the boards harder. What specific guys on OKC do you think need to step up most to match Indiana's depth and keep that third quarter under control?
I think it's Chet. I think Chet was invisible this game, and he has to make his presence known. We talked about it the other day. The two players that, besides Shea, that need to have good games has to be Chet and has to be Jalen Williams. those two players, and Jalen Williams was there. He had 17 points. He had a pretty solid game. I think he could do better. I didn't feel like I noticed him as much this game. There's a lot of games that I think he stands out. This time I think he got, even though he had a good game, I think he was just kind of there as he always is, but there weren't any huge standout runs that he has. A lot of times he'll have a steal and a drive, and it seems like it's back to back to back. I didn't see that this game.
Yeah, you're so right about Chet Holmgren needing to show up bigger. He was practically a ghost last night, and for a guy with his size and skill, that's a missed opportunity to dominate. Jalen Williams put up a solid 17 points, but like you said, he didn't have those electric, game-changing moments we're used to. None of those steal and slam sequences that get the crowd going. OKC needs both those guys to be difference makers, especially against a deep Pacers team. Chet's got to own the paint, block shots, and grab boards to counter Indiana's rebounding edge. 56-39 was brutal.
Yeah.
And Jalen needs to rediscover that spark, maybe hunt for those transition plays you mentioned. How do you think OKC can get Chet more involved early to make him a factor? And any specific plays you'd run for Jalen to get him those steal and drive moments?
I think that to get Chet more involved, you're going to need to do a few more pick and rolls with him. They're usually pretty good at that. I didn't notice that as much this game. Of course, that could be the defense of Indiana that keeps you from being able to do that, but I think that's something that was noticeable. I also don't think that Oklahoma City had near the number of fast break points as they're used to. They did have a lot of steals, but I didn't feel like that converted to exciting fast point plays this game.
You're spot on about getting Chet more involved with pick and rolls. That's his bread and butter, and it was weirdly absent last night. Indiana's defense, especially guys like Miles Turner, might have been clogging the lanes to shut that down, but OKC's got to scheme better to free him up. Maybe more off-ball screens, or quick handoffs to get Chet popping to the rim or spotting up. And yeah, the fast break points were way down. OKC usually feasts in transition, averaging about 15 fast break points a game. But last night, they only managed 8 despite racking up 12 steals. Those steals weren't turning into buckets like usual, probably because Indiana's hustle back on D was solid. For Jalen, maybe they could set him up for more weak side cuts or leakouts after steals to spark those exciting drives you're missing. How do you think OKC can counter Indiana's defense to open up those fast breaks and get Chet rolling in the pick and roll again?
Just be more aggressive. I think that's what it's going to take. I think that's what it's going to take to win the next 4 games. I do think that they still, in the series in 5, I knew that they were going to give one away. I kind of hoped that we would get the 2 victories at home, and the game that they wouldn't win was going to be at Indiana. That, to me, would have been more of a perfect scenario. But, Oklahoma City's been here before. This is something that they're used to. It's something that they can work through. So I don't think it's going to be a huge issue moving forward. And we've just got to be better. We just have to be better to win the next game. We've got to get better play from Chet, and we've got to get better play off the bench. Indiana beat us off the bench, which is not common for Oklahoma City, and in fact, I didn't think that Indiana had this depth. So moving forward, there's got to be some changes made. I think the starting lineup needs to be the same consistent starting lineup it's been throughout the season, for at least most of the season. I know Chet was out for a while, but I think we need to go back to what works. I don't think that worked. We'll see how this looks. I'm looking forward to game 2. I think we've got to win it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. And that's kind of where we are. So let's see what happens. I have finished my coffee, so we're going to finish this podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep on coming back, Hyden Out Loud. We're going to talk about things that are going on. Right now, it's the NBA Finals. It won't be that way whenever we get back. This is not necessarily an NBA style channel. This is just an out loud channel with things that I'm passionate about that I'm going to come to you and talk to out loud about. Hey everybody, have a wonderful day, and we will see you at the next game.